Hello there. We'll get started shortly. How are you? You are on mute.
There we go. All right, I'm
Excellent.
going to turn my camera off here too.
Okay, I'm gonna have everyone in like 2 minutes. I'm gonna have everyone come on camera. I want us all to see each other to start and introduce ourselves. So you may want to wait to do that, but okay. We've got a good group. So I don't know how many people plan on being here in person, but we have, I think, 15 people registered for this class, which is wonderful. Are you up in Michigan? Are you friends with Laura?
Yes, yeah. Yep, she posted on it on her Facebook page, and I was like, okay, this sounds up my alley. Perfect for
That's
me.
awesome. Are you in Ypsilanti?
Yeah, yeah,
Such
yeah.
a
You'll have
cute.
to pardon my screen. Like I am very new to this particular screen, so if I'm looking in the wrong place, that's why.
You're fine. You're totally fine. How was getting the supplies for you?
Totally fine. I've done watercolor in the past, so most of it I pretty much already had. Yeah,
Great, great.
but I'm entirely self-taught, so it'll be good to get some new techniques, and
Yeah,
we'll learn how to apply things a little better.
yeah, I'm sure you're probably doing great already.
It's fun to play around with, and it's honestly very easy to set up compared to a lot of other types of painting. So
Yeah. Is it echoing really badly for you?
no, it is not. Is mine echoing?
No, mine is, and I think it has to do with this guy up here.
Okay, no, you sound totally fine.
Okay, good. Hello, Amy, welcome. Susan, welcome. Hi.
Hello,
So happy to see your face.
thank you. It's been a very stressful day and I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Well, it's 7, so I'm gonna have us go ahead and just go around and say our names since it's the first one, share who we are, where we are in the country, and if you can also share maybe what your experience with watercolor so far has been. And I'll probably repeat that a couple times as folks are coming on.
I'll start. Does it
Okay,
matter? Okay.
yeah, that'd be great, Susan.
All right. Susan Watson. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I have very little experience with watercolor.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. All right, I'm gonna go Lauren next. Can you all share a little bit? Okay.
So I'm streaming this to my TV so we can do it with my son.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
and I haven't painted since art class in high school. So for me, it's been a hot minute. Do you have any experience with watercolor?
A bit.
Bit.
A bit.
But I
Okay.
saw this class on Facebook with Laura, so
Excellent.
excited to be here.
I'm so glad y'all are here. Okay, so Sophia, will you go next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sophia Cornish, and I know Lara and live in Ypsilanti, Michigan. My experience with watercolor is fairly limited. It was my pandemic hobby that I
Hmm.
picked up. So I was like, I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm just going to fiddle around with this. So a lot of, like YouTube videos, and honestly, just like pulling other people's art and trying to see if I can recreate it.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you're here. Amy?
I'm also in Ypsilanti. I'm a Larataian.
Great.
Um, and I wanted to do plein air, so like outdoor. I tend to like to just do things, like I don't want to practice or learn anything. But yeah, I consequently am never good at it. So surprise. So yeah, I'm here to learn something. So, so my impromptu painting can maybe be decent. So.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad you're here. Sarah.
Sorry, I've got multiple monitors going. Um,
Sarah. I'm based in Cleveland. I'm also Facebook friends with Lara, um, and found you here. My experience with watercolor extremely limited. I am currently taking a drawing class though, so I thought this would be like a fun supplement and something to actually do with my drawings once I have a sketch. So,
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you.
yeah.
Right, Ashley and Rose.
We're here in Greensboro too. We are just getting into watercolor. We are looking for something fun to do together. So,
I
yeah.
love it. Well, I'm so glad you two are here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan.
Hi, I'm in Columbus and I call myself the queen of the half finished project. So I really like arts and crafts, and I've got a half finished crochet project behind me. And so I'm excited about a class where we have like a very specific project and we have to do these steps and have it done at the end of the class. So I'm excited for that. I don't have a ton of watercolor experience. I, loved art in high school, and I still like to do stuff. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad you're here. All right, Teresa.
Hi there. We missed the intro, but I'm gleaning that we're supposed to say how we found out about the class and stuff.
Or just who you are, where you're located, and what you can share how you found out about the class. That's great too. And maybe what your watercolor experience is.
Okay. My name's Teresa. I am friends with Lara. We're in Ypsilanti. We live 2 houses down from Lara, actually. So, my interest in watercolor has been lengthy, but I have not attempted it because I struggle with perfectionism and I'm afraid of not doing it right. So I'm really excited about taking class and learning techniques.
Excellent. I promise you, you can't do it wrong. How about that?
That's good to
And
hear.
who's with you?
This is my wife, Danielle.
Hi, Danielle. Tell us about your experience in watercolor.
Oh, zero. I have no artistic experience whatsoever. So
Not true.
good luck to everybody.
Okay, so that's funny you should say that. My watercolor teacher would always say we'd be doing stuff in class and she'd be doing something and she'd just be like, good luck with that, guys. Like, so you may hear me say that.
Perfect.
All right. Kate, are you able to share who you are, where you're located, and your experience in watercolor? You are on mute though. I can see you. I know when we're on our phone, it's so much harder on that screen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having computer problems, so I'm getting on with my computer, but it's being persnickety. So watercolor, just dabbled in it, but with no instruction nor Googling or YouTubing. So just kind of random playing. So I would love to learn correctly. So I
Okay.
will say probably a negative in that regard. So deficit, because I've done probably some wackadoodle things. So
Well, excellent. Well, I'm so glad you are all here. Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. I love to know who's in the room, the Zoom room, so to speak. And I just want to share a little bit about my background in watercolor before we get started, because I think that we all stand on the backs of or the shoulders of our teachers, right? And I think that's super important. So Sharon Larson is my watercolor teacher, and she is I don't know, she's in the Midwest somewhere, and I would do a Zoom class with her, and she was a coaching client of mine, and then it turned into me being a client of hers in watercolor. And I took a Thursday night class with her on Zoom all through the pandemic, and I had done a lot of watercolor in high school, but really started it with Sharon. And so a lot of my knowledge comes from Sharon, and she still teaches her Thursday night class. In fact, my mom is in her Thursday night class right now. My mom's like, well, maybe sometimes I can come to yours. And I said, no, Mom, you stay in Sharon's class. I love you, but please stay there. So if you're curious about where my background is, that's really where it comes from. And tonight we are going to be just focusing on the watercolor. So some of you might progress and decide that you want to try to sketch things out before we start. That's fine, you can do that. But for purposes of time, I think the easiest thing to do is to just go ahead and trace the picture so that we can get right to the watercolor, because this is a watercolor class, not a drawing class. And my drawing skills aren't that great, but my tracing skills are fabulous. So hopefully you all got some, were you able to all find some carbon paper? Okay, and so what I like to do is I take my reference photo and I just tape it to the top of the picture. So I take my black and white and I tape it to the paper that we're going to be working with. Then what I do is we're going to take it now, carbon paper, when it's fresh, and this is an older carbon paper, it gets better with time. So the more you use it, the better it gets. So you can even kind of scrumple it up if you have a really fresh piece of carbon paper, and that will help. The newer it is, the darker the lines will be. And some people really love that style and some people don't like that at all. So you'll find what your preference is. If you decide that you really don't like the dark lines of carbon paper, one of the things that you can do is you can take the picture, the black and white picture, and just take pencil all over the back. So just, I get a really big, thick graph pencil and just all over the back and then trace that way. And it's definitely not as strong of a line if you do it that way. Okay, so we're going to get into tracing, but before we do that, let me talk to you about the steps. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about watercolor and mindset, because I think that's really the most important piece. Then we're going to trace, and then I will start taking us through the steps of the actual painting. And you can stop me, you can interject, you can ask questions at any time. So don't feel like you have to be quiet. This is definitely a two-way experience or a multiple way experience. The paper package, that's not a dumb question. So did you get arches? Yes. Okay, what you need is like a letter opener or a palette knife or a butter knife will work. And look at the sides of your arches and see where there's the white part. At the top, yep, up your, it's pointing me towards me, right? That, yep. So you're gonna take your butter knife, if you don't have a palette knife, and you're just gonna trace it all along, and you're gonna take that first initial black coating off, and then you'll take another one and you'll get the next one around there. It's a great question. Okay, let's talk mindset before we dive in. So I've been doing watercolor for a really long time and I paint almost every day. So I've been painting almost every day for about 5 years now. So I think it's really important when you start a journey like this to honor where you are. Are you a newbie? Are you a beginner? Do you paint every day? Be where you are. So be a beginner, be willing to be in that messy place, that place where it's a little bit scary, you know you don't know what you're doing. Watercolor takes time to master, and we're not even here to master it tonight. We're here to have fun. The more you do it, the better you will get. It just takes time. So definitely do not compare your work to my work. Don't compare your work to anyone you might be sitting in the room with. Don't compare your work to anyone in our Zoom room. Your work is your work, and wherever you are is exactly where you need to be, okay? So that's the most important thing. The next, well, here, this is actually the most important thing. Be kind to yourself. This is all about having fun, first and foremost. It's about learning a new skill and having a good time. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to be in our head criticizing ourselves. If you hear that little gremlin say, hey, that's nice of you to show up, but I don't need you tonight. Thanks for coming. I'll talk to you later. Okay. We don't need that little, yeah. I saw Teresa. Did you have something to say about that? You look like All right, so just that little gremlin in your head, it does not need to, it's like what Elizabeth Gilbert says about fear, like it doesn't get to drive the bus. You can tell it to go eat a cookie or something. You're here to have a good time tonight. So that next thing is just have fun. It's about having fun. That's why we're here. Okay, are we ready? Yes. So after you have taped your black and white picture to your paper, and it's like the crinkly side up, watercolor paper does have a correct side and an incorrect side. However, if you get the really good watercolor paper, even if you paint on the incorrect side, it's still going to look good. So the correct side, and you know what, I don't have mine on the correct side. The side you want to be working on is the side that's got the most grooves in it, because that will soak up the most pigment and the most water. And I could just feel by touch that I didn't have mine on the right side, so I'm moving it.
Are we supposed to take it off the pad or leave it on the pad?
Okay, that's a great question. So for those of you that have a pad where you might need to use the palette knife to get the paper off, you can leave it on. You can actually paint with it on. That's why they create it like that, because watercolor can get a little like the more water you add to a paper, it can start to have waves to it, and that helps keep it down. My preference is always to take it off. I'm not the type of painter that gets a whole bunch of water on my paper, but you'll find what works best for you. You might decide that you like to have it off, and you might decide you might want to have it on. And Jessica, welcome. It's nice to see you. Hi. Okay, so what we're going to do after you have taped your reference photo to your paper, we're going to take our carbon paper and we're going to do carbon side down. Okay, so you can see the darker side right here, that dark side, we want that down, and we're going to put that under this. Okay, I'm going to pin this. So did that make this bigger for all of you? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Yes, okay. When you get the recording, what you should know is that this will not be highlighted. You will just have that little one. Unfortunately, I haven't quite figured out how to make it so that this will be up the way it is when we're in person. So it's a good reason to come in person if you can, but if you can't make it in person, that's okay too. But what we're going to do, go ahead and begin tracing. Now, something that you should know about tracing, I like to trace with a red pen so that I can see where I've been. And I also trace not just the outline of what we're doing, I'm going to trace all of the shadows as well. And y'all don't have to be quiet. We can talk to each other while the tracing is happening.
What does that mean, trace the shadows, please?
Okay, so let me get a little closer. So for example, and forgive me, I jammed my finger last night. So you might, it's like black and blue. I don't know that you all can tell, but if I do weird things, that's why. But what it means to trace the shadow. So if I'm starting with the handheld part of the phone here, I'm going to trace the outline of the phone. And you all can be doing this part along with me, just tracing the outline of that handheld portion of the phone. And then if you look right here, do you see how there's a highlight right there? Where my pen is pointing, there's a highlight right here. I'm just going to kind of put that in. There's also a line of a reflection of the wire. There's this little thing right here. I'm going to put all of that in. So what watercolor forces us to do is look really closely at whatever it is that we're painting. There's also a highlight on the phone right here. And over here, I'm just all of the lines that I see, I'm including all of those lines in my tracing. So for example, on this side right here, here's another great example of tracing the shadows and the highlights where the phone, the handheld part of the phone touches, there's this triangle that is a shadow. I always find that the tracing part is pretty cathartic. Just kind of gets me into the mood of paying attention to what the object is, where the shadows are, where there's reflections, light and dark.
What if it's not going all the way onto the paper?
What do you mean?
Like the carbon.
Not going all the way on the, is there a way you can show me?
Got the phone, the carbon, and then the paper.
Where's your carbon paper?
Under the phone.
It's under the phone. So if it's not big enough, are you saying like the carbon paper is not big enough to match that surface area that you're hitting?
It is, but it's not going through.
Okay. Do you have a pencil?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that a mechanical pencil or like a regular pencil? Do you have a regular pencil?
I can find one, or I have the like micron things.
Okay. So there's a couple things that you can try. So you can try pressing harder with your pen.
Mm-hmm.
The harder you press, the darker it should get. But you can also take like a regular like number 2 pencil and then it would look like this. You would shade all over it like this with that pencil, but like a lot. You'd cover it quite a bit. And it just takes a little bit of time. And then you can do that and it will be a lighter one, but you have to press a little harder with this version. Normally with tracing paper, I get the opposite complaint, like, oh, I really don't like that dark line.
you tracing like every single line on the cord, I assume?
That's a
Just on-
great question. I'm gonna give it the illusion of that. So what I'll do is I'll just go like this. I might end up doing all of the lines. Let's just see.
I'm really sorry because I wasn't here in the beginning and that's not anybody else's fault. But
You're
like,
fine.
is it supposed to trace onto the actual watercolor paper?
Yes.
Okay, I'm using the pencil and it's still not going. It's just really faint, but
Huh.
I have to
Mm,
dig.
like really hard.
Mhm.
Are you using the correct side of the tracing paper?
I don't know.
The dark side down is what you want. Is that helping?
Yep, that's the problem.
Okay, good, good, good. I didn't do every little line here, but I did quite a bit. So do not remove the tape until you know that you have all of the lines transferred onto the paper that you want. But so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to look at what I have. So what I have is, let's see. Yeah, not everything. So I didn't get as much detail right here in the circle as I would like. So I am going to put my tracing paper back and come back. All right, so I'm pretty pleased with what I have so far here. So I'm going to remove my tape. But again, you don't want to remove your tape until you know you have all of the lines. It's really hard. It's almost impossible to get it lined back up to where you had it. Okay, so something that's really important to know in watercolor, we typically want to move light to dark. It's very difficult to go lighter if you've gotten too dark. The other thing you should know is watercolor typically dries a little bit lighter than what you put down on the paper. So, oh, I didn't get some numbers and I'm going to have to put those in here.
Alicia, are you drawing the numbers on there now or not?
I did put the numbers in. I missed a couple, so I'm going back and putting them in now. So what I want to do, I want us to look at this reference photo here for a second. So we're going to be doing a technique called, it's technically called glazing. My teacher, Sharon, calls it color mapping. But the technical term is actually glazing. I think color mapping makes much more sense, but the technical term is glazing. And what that means is we're going to build up layers of color. I'm going to paint everywhere that I see red, the lightest color red, that's on this phone, and it's this reflection right here. So this is the lightest color. This is kind of light too, but they're similar. So I'm going to take this light color right here, and I'm going to try to create that color. And we're going to do that together. So I've got my butcher tray that I use, but really any plate would work in this scenario as a nice palette. And I suggested different sized brushes. So your trusty one is going to be your round 6. Your 2 is it's tiny. And then I have a really big one with me right now, a 16. And just for color mixing, if you have a 12 or a 16, that's a good one to just start creating the color. So I'm going to get the brush really wet. And then I'm going to think about the color that I want to use. And before we even get into that, I meant for us to talk about this first, but we'll do it now. So you all might have different types of paints. Some of you might have gotten the Artistro set that I suggested. And if you did, this set comes with a blank card that looks like this. And this blank card, what it's designed for is giving you the opportunity to see what the colors look like. So you would go from the top of this color here, left to right, and you'd be painting them in here. This does not actually correspond to this though. They're not necessarily in the right order. So this is your map of what you're actually looking at here. And this is just for you to see what those colors look like dry. So it doesn't matter if you haven't done that yet tonight or before class, but I do recommend on outside of class, definitely doing this exercise of just painting out the colors and see what they look like. If you didn't get this set, it doesn't matter. You can still create a little map for yourself of what the colors look like. So I want something that looks, I think kind of like this. Something between the raspberry and the cherry red is what I'm hoping for. Now, anything that happens in Alicia Land is choose your own adventure. So you can all decide that you want to do red, or you might think, hey, you know what? I'd really like my phone, my 70s phone, to be a 70s green, or I would like it to be pink. Pick your color. It can be whatever color you want. The concept that I'm going to teach is going to be the same no matter what color you choose. So don't be afraid to choose a different color. But I'm going to mix something between this raspberry and the cherry red. Now the raspberry that I'm looking at is actually right here in my tray, and the cherry is in the top left corner. So these are the two colors I'm going to start with. I'm going to take my big wet paintbrush and I'm going to put it into the tray, and I'm moving my brush around a lot to pick up a whole lot of pigment. Now that I have a whole lot of pigment on the brush like that, I'm going to bring it over to my tray. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful color. I'm just going to kind of roll with that color, I think. I don't think I'm going to try to mix it with the cherry red. I'm just going to leave it raspberry. But this is going to be a really dark. I got a lot of pigment on my brush. So what I want to do is I want to water it down so that it will be closer to this highlight right here. Now I have some scrap pieces of paper, of watercolor paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to add some water to lighten it up. And I'm going to test it. And that's where I think I'm going to start with my color, knowing that I can always go darker, but I can't always go lighter. Any questions? Let me just pause here for a second. How are we doing? Okay. So you can use your round six or a round 8. We've got a lot of surface area to cover, so I'm going to start with I'm going to keep moving with this 16, and I'm going to get a little bit more water on my brush, pulling in a little bit more pigment. And I'm just going to paint everywhere I see red. I'm going to paint it this light color. And this technique of what we do is wet on dry, because the paper is dry. And we're taking this wet paint and putting it on the paper. And as I paint right now, I'm trying not to let there be any pools of water. I'm just trying to keep it really even. I might need to add a little bit more water to my brush to make it go smoothly. Oh, you know what I just did? I just got so excited to talk to y'all that I painted over what should have stayed white. So as you can see, there's a little error right here, but it will be fine. We'll figure it out. So I'm just going around. I think it's really important not to take ourselves too seriously in this process because it's just a piece of paper. We're here to have fun and relax.
I'm just gonna say I feel targeted.
I was reminding myself.
Last time I took a painting class, the instructor made me take a break and she took my painting away.
Oh,
Who said that?
Jessica, was that you?
It wasn't, yeah, I was too stressed out.
Well, it makes me glad that I just kind of made that little error because, you know, anything we do, it's just a piece of paper here. And oddly enough, a lot of stuff in watercolor can be fixed. There's always something we can do with it. And you can always kind of make a mistake work. Okay, and the really interesting thing about watercolor is it requires some patience because things have to dry in order for us to be able to layer it down. My watercolor teacher actually has a hair dryer attached to her desk, and she would just kind of put things on mute and just take the hairdryer to it to dry it faster. Whenever I do that, I always end up sending water droplets with pigment all over my paper. So I try not to use the hairdryer. And most of the time I can get away with not needing to. And in this case, there's a lot of layers. So I'm just letting this dry. There is a really dark, like what the phone is sitting on down here. I can't tell if those are dark red or black, but I'm just going to go with black. And down here is not dry yet. So we can't start it quite yet. But what I can do is this middle part in black. So I'm going to get my round sticks wet, and I'm going to pick up a little black pigment.
Alicia, this is a stupid question.
No stupid questions.
When you're getting water, are you completely rinsing your brush before you put it in your pretty set of paints and mix them all up?
Where
Like you talked about the cherry red and the raspberry, but if I keep dipping into it, I'm mixing them in the tray instead of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't worry too much about it. I will sometimes completely wash off my brush, but I'm not too worried about it.
Okay.
So I'll dip it in the water, I'll get a little bit off, and then I'll pick up the other one, especially if it's two reds that I'm working with or two greens, for example. I'm not super worried about keeping that entirely clean.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that's a great question. I just added a little dark black right here. I'm going to come back in here with micron pens, I think. And you know what? We can get a little bit into the details, into the weeds here. And you may want to use your 2, or you might want to use your round 6. And we're going to bring in, see in between the numbers, there's that little red. While the red all over the phone is drying, we can come in and fill in the red between the numbers and the buttons. So is it as hot up in Michigan right now as it is around the rest of the country down here in North Carolina? What's Ipsy like right now?
It was like 85 today. It got up
Not-
to pretty
not
humid.
bad. Has it been hotter, or was that like a cool down from where it had been?
It had been cooler. But prior to that, we had some really high 90s humid weather.
Mm.
I thought it was terrible.
Today was like 85 for us, but we've been in the high 90s almost. I think it hit 100 yesterday. And so it kind of felt like a complete cool down. Okay, so if your paper is dry in certain places, we can start to layer on a little bit darker. So let's see. I just want to go right now where it's dry. And I think I can do this triangle right here. So I'm just putting my brush in the pigment. actually not as dark as I want it to be, but that's a good start. I'm gonna add a little bit more pigment to my brush, bring it over here. And now I'm gonna do this area in here. Try to get a good sharp line, but that's dark. There is in the corner right here, there's a highlight over here that I wanna kind of leave. I don't wanna get it too dark over here on the right-hand corner of the phone.
You tell Danielle to stop looking at my paint.
Don't compare your work.
I just don't know where to go with the red.
How did you get such a good pool of paint on your palette?
So I took my brush in the water like this, and I've got a big brush, but around 8 would work as well, around 6, around 8. And I took this and I really got it in here. Like that. And then I brought it over here and I added more water because I wanted to water down that pigment so it wouldn't be so dark.
Yeah, okay. My 6 brush is fat. Look how fat that is.
Oh my goodness, you got a squirrel hair brush, didn't you?
That's what it is.
Yes. So go smaller.
I didn't know anything about them.
I really like the Princeton Heritage
It was
series.
sold out on Amazon.
Oh, bummer.
Thank you. I was thinking I was.
Yeah, no,
using it.
you know what? You have a very fancy brush. I kind of covet the squirrel hair brushes. It's fancy. So part of the fun of watercolor is always, I think, having a surprise of what it is that we're going to be painting. So throughout this course, we'll paint an object. Tonight is clearly the object. We'll paint either an animal or an insect. That will be next week. We'll do either an animal or an insect. We'll do a botanical of some sort. And then we will also do a landscape. And each of doing a little range of things like that will give us the ability to try different techniques, have different challenges throughout the class. But I'm curious, do we have any requests on animals or insects?
Insects.
Insects, okay. Any specific type of insect?
I'm with insects too, but I don't have a direct recommendation. I'm defaulting to Teresa.
Okay.
Blue and
Like,
Is a butterfly an insect?
Yeah, butterfly is an insect. It might be, maybe possible. The thing about butterflies that's hard is the thing that makes a watercolor picture so great is shadows. And it's hard to get shadows with butterflies. Not saying impossible. I'll give it a good look and see if I can find one.
How about cicadas?
Ooh,
Yeah. Or crickets or grasshoppers?
okay. Those are good recommendations. I'm writing those down.
we totally are down with cicadas.
Okay. I really like that suggestion. And I'm going to keep going to the darker places and just paint darker where I see darker. And you'll start to notice that it's going to begin to come alive. So right now it's pretty flat. But the more layers that we bring in, the more it will begin to pop. Like for instance, there's this highlight right here on the phone that I'm leaving light. It's all those little details. I really feel like watercoloring is really about learning to look at things in a new way. If you decide that you stick with it, what I find is that you start to see lots of different colors and things. Like you start, as you are looking at trees and plants and animals, you'll see all of the different colors that are present, the shades and the values. And then if you end up liking it and you keep doing a whole lot of watercolor, you just start to see the world in a whole new way because you're thinking about how you're going to paint it later.
So hypothetically, of course, if someone went way too dark, right at the beginning and just completely went the opposite of what you said and didn't water it down enough, is there anything that could be done?
Is it still pretty wet?
Sure.
Okay, do you have a paper towel?
No.
Do you have
No.
napkins?
Yeah.
Napkins?
I can go on a journey.
Okay, I would go on a little journey, see if you can grab some paper towels, toilet paper, a napkin, and then dab it on and lift straight up. Oop. So, and lift up and so like press it into the paper and lift it up, and that will probably bring some pigment off.
Okay.
All right, how are we doing? Everyone feeling okay with their layering right now? Ashley and Rose, I'm so curious, how did you two find out about this class?
I found it honestly, I'm signed up for your newsletters. I
Oh,
follow
awesome.
your Instagram, so it popped up tonight and I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yay, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Sarah, were you able to pull up some of that color?
No, I waited far too long to admit my mistake.
Well, next time you'll know, right?
Learning experience.
Yeah. And you can just keep darkening it up, right? Like you can just make a darker layer than what you put down. What color did you choose to work with?
I'm also working with raspberry over here.
Okay. Well, if you are able to, you can just keep darkening it up and darkening it up. But another workaround to it is you could turn it into purple. So you could, as we get darker, you could put a little blue on top instead of continuing to work in raspberry. So that would be a workaround that I would give that. Okay, so I've just done another layer of dark in some places and I need to let that dry. So I'm going to go back to my black. I'm just going to create those little black feet. Being careful if you have any wet spots that it might be touching because the black will travel right into those other wet places. And as I'm waiting for, again, the outside part of my phone to dry, I'm going to go ahead and kind of try to darken up again in the where the numbers are, because I definitely didn't go dark enough in some of those places. Now I'm going to begin to try to bring a pretty dark part into the cord. So I'm getting a lot of pigment on my brush. See if you can see this here. So it's a little bit hard to see, but I've picked up a lot of pigment. It's not, there's no water dripping from it, but it's just pigment. So with that, I want to do this dark line underneath the cord right here. It's like a shadow. And then where I see the shadow, so just kind of a little side part, I'm taking my line. Question? And along the side of the cord here, there's just a little shadow that I'm pulling in.
Are you coloring in the cord
Right
like
here.
where the little lines are? Or are you doing that with like black or something?
Do you see what I just did right here?
Yeah.
So I just got the raspberry on my brush
Mhm.
and I just kind of traced the line. And I just kept it raspberry, that same raspberry color that I've been using, just a darker version of it for now. I may go in with a blue later
Okay.
to add a little bit more depth, but we'll just have to see. Okay, then I want to go back to this handle and I want to darken this up right here. So looking at this handle part that's facing us, not the top of the handle, but the part that's closest to the numbers, I want to bring that dark red in. So I'm going to get my brush wet. I'm sticking with my round 6. I'm going back to my pigment and I'm picking up a lot of pigment. I want to make it really dark. So I'm not going to bring it over to my butcher's table because I want to make this the darkest color on the picture. I might get a little water, but I'm keeping it pretty dark. I'm gonna pick up some more pigment, bring that in here. And that's gonna come down on the side of the part of the phone that would be the speaker. It's pretty dark over here, so I'm just gonna continue to bring this down. But but I'm not gonna carry it all the way over here, I don't think. I'm gonna let that area dry. Now, there is a line like right here that is dark red. So if you're looking at the reference photo, you can see this dark line right here. I'm gonna draw that in with my brush. I'm gonna get a lot of pigment on my brush, and then I'm gonna come in and just draw that line in. And then while I'm here with this dark pigment, I'm going to just the receiver cradle back here, that's pretty dark. So I'm going to just paint that in. And as you can see, it's starting to pop, right? It's starting to come out. We're still in the messy middle part of it, the part where we might feel so inclined to want to criticize, but we really don't need to do that. We're still in the messy middle piece of it. I had all of that pigment on my brush and I just brought it over to the tray. I did not get more water on it. I just kept it over in this area of the tray. And I might even grab a little bit more pigment and bring it back over to the tray here. So this is a nice rich dark color that I have. And I still need to go even darker than what I have here. So I'm going to go darker here. And this next layer that I'm doing, this is where this corner right here, I'm gonna just kind of avoid the corner as I come down, and I'm gonna just round it out a little. I'm looking a lot at what's happening on my reference photo as I'm painting this. I'm really trying to mimic what I see strongly. And this triangle over here, I'm going to darken that up a little too. And then coming back to this cradle of the phone and adding that additional layer. I'm gonna get a little more water on my brush and I'm gonna bring that over. So it's just a slightly watered down. And I want to kind of just make it a little darker back here on the I guess the hearing part. I don't even know what we would call this, the handle of the phone. And I'll darken it over here on this side of the phone as well. Now, right around the numbers in this circle over here, it gets into, there's a highlight here that I want to avoid, but it is darker over here. So I'm going to bring in another layer of dark right around this area in the phone. Now there's a little line over here at the bottom that I just bring that in a little here. Okay, and then where our numbers are on the dial pad here, there's this metal piece. And metal is a tricky color. It's kind of like a gray. Sometimes it looks blue, but we do have a gray in our nice little watercolor set here. So I'm just getting a little bit of the gray onto my blue. And I had washed it off, but I'm going to bring it over here to my butcher tray. And I'm going to add water. I want to make this first layer pretty light. And then I want to leave that alone and let it dry. We're going to do more. We're going to bring more detail into that in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to leave that right there. I want to get a little sassy with this phone. And I think, can anyone else see almost some purple tones in that red? Yes. Okay, go ahead. Tell me, Danielle, I saw you get really excited.
well, like right at the very bottom
Mhm.
and then right at the,
Like
Where-
here is where you were seeing purple?
a little bit
Or-
left, down, yep, right there.
Mhm.
And then up on the earpiece, like at the
Here.
very bottom, like that little shadowy piece.
So there's a shadow that I see here. Is this the one you're talking about?
Nope, one, just a little to the left. Right there.
Here. Yes, that's very dark.
That-
We're gonna come back to that. That is definitely some purple. We can even bring in a little purple under here, I think. And so maybe a little tiny purple over here and on this side and down here. So what is going to be super key to this purple is that, I don't know if y'all can tell, but see where it's like kind of glistening on my phone? It's not dry yet. So I want to be very careful with how I do this. But I bet you, yes. Okay, so I'm going to mix a little bit. I'm going to take this cobalt blue over here in the right-hand corner. I'm going to bring it to my palette. And I'm going to just kind of mix it up a little. I've got this little purple here on my brush. And I'm going to take this over here on the cord. And I'm going to see what it feels like to bring that in to the lines on the cord. So first I'm just going to bring in the purple all over that. So it kind of darkened it up. We'll come back, we'll add more detail in a little bit. But I'm going to take just that cobalt blue on the tip of my brush and I'm going to bring it under. Oh yeah, see, do you see what that just did? Right here. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but it's got a nice little blue line over top. So I added that shadow right there. Okay, I'm also going to take more of that cobalt and mix it in. Okay, I'm going to bring it to this part over here on the phone. See, I'm going to bring it right here. Let's see what happens. So I'm just going to touch that down here. Yes, that's fun. And I'm going to bring it over. How are we feeling about adding this purple in? I think that made the receiver pop. What do y'all think? And see how I added just purple in here. Questions, thoughts? And once again, I'm going to grab this cobalt. And I want it a little bit more cobalt than red. So I don't want it to be so much purple. I want it to be more blue. Oh, question?
Forward. And the other end.
So right here on the receiver,
Easy, easy.
I'm going to just go ahead and bring in this dark blue. And this is where I think, Danielle, you were saying you saw it, I think. One of the places anyway. I'm going to pull that all the way around down here. And I'm going to even bring it over a little. And bring a little more red in, just a little. Over on the right over here, I'm just going to bring a little bit darker in here as well. And then under, so this very, very dark line right here. And mine just kind of bled a little bit up into the receiver, and I'm fine with that. That's one of those little happy things that happens when you just kind of let go and let the watercolor piece do what it wants to do. I'm going to continue with this color that I've got on the palette, this purplish. And I'm going to make a line right here in front. There's this like rectangle in the receiver cradle. I'm going to take this blue purple that I've got mixed up. And I'm going to create this shadow right here. So it's just kind of a little shadowy line. There's one under the receiver. Right there. Might even be a little bit of a line right down here. Okay, now while I'm waiting for these places up here to dry, I want to play with this right here. This shadow. Actually, we're gonna have to wait on that for a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit darker in to the feet on this guy. Okay, so Lara is the reason why I'm offering the Thursday night class, and she actually couldn't make it this evening, but she and I talked about this. I said, okay, we'll do Thursday nights. We'll do 7:30 or 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, a 2-hour class. She's like, can you do it in an hour and a half? So we're getting very close to the 8:30 time frame, but we're not quite done with all the details here. So if you have to leave, no worries, but I'm gonna stay on till we finish all of the details. And I'm going to take this purple blue color here. I'm going to bring a little bit more red in. And I'm going to, again, come around this circle, and I want to add this purple into, mine's pretty wet. So I'm just kind of adding the color in and letting it mix on the paper.
Can we see everybody's to see how we're actually doing?
Not yet. No comparing work right now.
That's a big no.
It's turning into like a really dark, overwatered situation.
It's okay. Be patient. Let it dry. Move slowly. And if there's a lot of water on the paper, I'm not going to have us pick it up because it can drip. So just keep that in mind. I know I've got some spots that could drip if I pick it up.
It's not that bad. It's just sometimes the paper like gets almost over painted and saturated. So like it's like gritty looking.
Do you have arches? You did get arches. Okay. So what you've got those big squirrel hair brushes. You're gonna want to work on getting less water on the brush. And I'm going to come back to, I'm going to get a little bit more cobalt on. I'm going to bring it over here. And then there's a little shadow on this receiver handle back here. Just adding that in. I'm going to add it right here. Now I'm going to get more cobalt on my brush. Let's see. And I'm going to take it around. Now it's this is going to be a little risky because mine's still wet, but I want to see what it does when I do this. So I'm going to take just the cobalt and I'm going to take it around. It's a little shadow. And I'm just doing it right here on this left side to start. And it's a little dark. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a little water. I'm going to mix it over here. I'm going to come back to my raspberry. I'm going to pick up a lot of pigment from my raspberry. I'm going to mix it over with the blue. More raspberry. Until I get just a slightly different color here. And now I'm going to bring that over. Now I'm gonna get this brush wet. And I'm just gonna kind of bring now I'm gonna pick up a little bit more of that pigment, that purple pigment. I just want it to be a little bit darker over here. I feel like my highlight over here on the left is almost too light. So I'm gonna get a little bit of pink, the light raspberry. I'm gonna come back over. I just want to darken it up just a little. And I didn't bring it all the way over because I see a highlight right here that will allow me to just let the highlight come through. In this highlight on the corner, there is this subtle line. So I'm taking a little bit of the blue, but the light blue over here, you can see I've got my paintbrush in it. And I'm just going to draw a line straight down the middle. And I do want to darken it up over here a bit. All right, how's everybody feeling? So we have a pretty tight phone here, or should be getting close to a pretty tight phone. And one of the things that I like to do, and I can't do it because my phone is recording the picture, but one of the things that I like to do at this point when I think I'm done or close to done is I like to take a picture of what I just did. And then I like to edit that picture and make it a black and white, and it will show me what the contrast looks like, how much I have, how little I have, where there's places that I could bring more contrast into. So you can do that as a way to help inform your painting. I want to check in with everyone. How are we doing?
I'm all right, thanks.
Any questions on where you are at? Any detail questions here?
We're still talking about watercolor, right?
Yeah, but you can ask me anything.
You are a coach.
I'm a life coach. Yeah, that's my main.
30 life coach hours.
What was that?
It's 30 now, so you're done being a watercolor teacher, full life coach.
They inform each other very well. I unpinned it. Now you can repin that if you want to, but I want to see all of you as we're doing this. So one of the details I want to add here is under this little metal piece right here. You can see it's really dark under there. So it's almost that purple. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to pull that in. I'm adding a line over here. Adding lines around. And there's these little This is kind of hard to see, but it will add a lot. Right here, there's these lines. Because that's kind of a plastic coating that's picking up light. But I'm gonna add those little circular lines in there to add a little bit more depth.
Are you just leaving the keys the like white paper color?
For the moment, I am. I'm gonna go in with a micron pen and I'm gonna add a little bit of detail. I'll show you how I do that. Also, I think this is dry enough. Over here, there's a shadow, and I'm taking, it's kind of the purple color, but there's the shadow that I've got like right here, this line that comes down. There's this dark part around the bottom of that. And then there's a dark line right here. It's purple as well. And under here, there's a highlight, a detail. And right here. And under here. Okay. Now I want to do this dark shadow. So you could do that really purple. You could do it really blue. I think I'm going to go for like, I think I'm going to make my shadow blue. So we've got this shadow right here. Under the phone. So this is where watercolor and life coaching kind of mix. The shadows, I think, are what make the picture the most beautiful. And that's a life coaching thing, right? We've got to make friends with our shadow sides, because they're part of what make us beautiful. Now there's a little bit of a lighter shadow over here. So I'm just kind of extending that out. I just added more water. And I'm not quite satisfied with the cord. So I'm going to get a little bit more cobalt on there. And now I'm going to add it in where I see it, where I see it's dark. I'm adding a little more cobalt under here as well. I'm gonna warn you, we could play with details for hours. There's this line that I want to add in over on this side too. Okay, so I am mostly satisfied with this phone. Want to darken up the black right here on the sticker. You remember a rotary phone? This isn't exactly a rotary phone. It looks like it has buttons, but you remember a rotary phone? This is where it would have had the emergency numbers, the fire department, 911, things like that. Okay, so micron pens. This is what I'm going to do next. So this will work with a really fine tip, like a pilot, a black pilot pen could work, but I want to do a micron pen. So let's see here. Now, micron pens are waterproof in that if we were to draw out our picture with the micron pen first, let the micron ink dry, we could then bring it over top and watercolor over top, and it would not bleed those lines. Now, if you take a micron pen and you touch it to water, you're going to take black micron ink everywhere, which is not what we want to do. So you want to make sure that wherever you're going over is already dry. But I'm going to take a micron pen, and it's a pretty thin or light. See, it's a pretty, there's different ones. This one's pretty small. I think I want to go a little bit bigger. This is a 0.01. I think I want a 3. Yeah. So it's a little bit bigger. It's hard to see it, but I'm just going to bring in the numbers here. That should make that pop just a little bit more. And the buttons have a little bit of a shadow on them. And that's the last detail we're going to do. So I'm going to get this blue color, this light blue over here. And I'm going to add just a little bit of shadow. And et voila. All right, it took us 13 minutes over. That's not normally my style, but these, I will say that these classes, we're trying to fit a lot into an hour and a half. So I will typically probably go over a little bit on them, but if you have to leave early, that's okay. You'll have the recording and you'll be able to revisit it. How are y'all feeling?
Good. That's
Good.
fun.
Good. Oh, look. Can y'all catch the fireworks? Did I do it again? I don't know if it will do it again. Okay, once is enough, I guess. But if you share it on social media, you can tag the Painted Way. But you don't have to share it on social media, but if you want to. And if you have any questions later in the week, if anything comes up, let me know. I'm happy to answer your questions via email. And if it's something that I think everyone can benefit from, I'll bring it into the next class. I loved your ideas of cicadas. I'm going to see what I can find as far as reference photos. But you all did a wonderful job. You'll get the recording of this tomorrow, and I can't wait to paint again with you next week.
Alicia, thank you so very much.
Yeah,
It
thank
was
you.
delightful, even though we were mostly quiet. It really was delightful.
Good. And we don't have to stay quiet. We can all talk to each other. But I know that in the beginning, it's like head down, we're thinking, we're trying to really focus on what we're doing. So it can be hard, but.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You all did a great job, and I can't wait to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was so much fun. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.